As always, make sure that you do your diligence and seek out the Most High's name and continue to seek, but make sure that you're seeking to obey Him, to love His Son, and to keep their commandments. Then, truthfully, you will know the name. Spellings and pronunciations will come in their time. But as you can see on the screen, there's almost every name that I've come across. There's probably a few not there that I know that people use, and we keep the communication going, between us that way. I don't stifle communication just because somebody else might use a different name. We're well aware about the controversies of the name, the letter J, so on and so forth. May the Most High continue to have mercy on us all. Shabbat Shalom coming in. Today is the second day of the 12th month of Dar. 6222 years from creation has passed, and we're almost at 6223. Here we are on our almanac, and there we are. So we have 5 Sabbaths in this month before we get to the new year. And you can see that the end of this month, even though it's the 30th for Adar, it'll be February 4th. And then right after that Sabbath lesson, it'll be the beginning of the new year on the first day of the week, just like creation. So I encourage everybody to continue to seek and learn. And in today's lesson, this is going to be, I have a few scriptures, but I'm going to present now Jah's Almanack in a fashion that just to lay it out. So if you want to take notes, and of course you can watch this video again for those, who can't watch it live. But I'm going to go at a nice pace to introduce these topics so that you just know Jah's Almanack. And it's going to, I'm going to be going through, as you can see, there's 5 Sabbaths and probably about 5 lessons all on Jah's Almanack, mixing and understanding various things. The Feast of Purim, as you can see, is in 2 more Sabbaths as well. We'll talk about that. And I think that's about it, family. Before we get started, if there's any questions or comments, and like I said, for those, this is going to be a calendar, Jah's Almanack, Revelation, focusing on that. At today's lesson, I'm not going to get into a lot of whose calendars are wrong and false or anything. I will speak about the Gregorian calendar today because the Gregorian calendar is very important in our time and has been since, many, 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 many years. And we'll talk a little bit about that. Shalom, everyone coming true. Bless up, one love. So this is the revelation of Jah's Almanack, and this is Jah's banner. And listen, this banner, let it shine. We don't let those people who are involved with pride, so to speak, take Jah's things and reverse it and take away a color and have 6 colors and all kind of things and make it, kind of stand for who they are. This banner was put in by the Most High in the sky. So I know for many years I've had the Revelation of Jah's calendar book. Let me show you something. So Revelation of Jah's calendar book, and this is what we have. We have it like this, right? And I know like a lot of people, especially this was published in the year 2000, family. Okay, is it 2000? I think yeah, exactly 2000. Yeah, 2000. But again, when people saw the banner on it, they kind of got a little bit shy, I guess. Didn't want to, because of the homosexual thing. But hey, it is what it is, right, family? All right. So this is an important month. This banner is very vital. We're going to talk a little bit about it more. So what is Jah's Scriptural Almanack? It's a yearly scriptural calendar giving scriptural information on the holy seasons, the months and feasts and holy convocations. As well, the agricultural seasons of planting and harvest are scripturally identified. 1 second here. The rainy seasons, called the early and latter rains, are also charted along with the climate of Israel. A full chronology of calendar cycles from the beginning of time into the future as well are included in this understanding. So Jah's Almanack, which is another word for calendar, right? If you look it up yourself, and I like the word almanac, it's a very powerful word. It encompasses not just like a calendar that has days and dates, but it's going to give us a lot of more information. And there are various almanacs out there. So, I understand that one of the more popular almanacs is the Farmer's Almanac. Here's the Farmer's Almanac. Right, this is 2022 for this year, but I also got the 2023 for going into next year. For those who like, information about calendars, I'm a big calendar buff. Calendar is probably the thing I know most best. I mean, along with studying scripture and stuff, but it's a big thing. And the Farmer's Almanac, I collect them every year. I probably have had them since maybe 2006. I've probably been collecting them every year since then, and I utilize them, planting information, great stuff. And this was originally, this Farmer Almanac, it goes back to they say 18 around 1792 at the bottom there. But in 1791, there was a black man named Benjamin Benneker who had what is called, it wasn't called the Old Farmer's Almanac. It was called something else with the name Almanac. Anyway, it was the same thing. These Gentiles actually copied Justin. You notice that they put their two Gentiles on the side there. But it was really a black man, Benjamin Benneker. You can check that out on your own time. Very powerful information. So remember, we're talking about days, months, and seasons of Jah's common year of 364 days. Everything I will try to explain today in a very clear fashion to set a foundation. So just giving you an overview here, 6 months, summer and winter seasons equals 364 days in a common year. We'll talk about all the years that we need to speak about. First rains are six first rains. We have there the 6-month hot dry season called summer. Then we have the second rains. Then we have the 4 seasons of the year: spring or harvest, summer, autumn, seed time, or winter. And of course, we have 12 months of the year. And then we have the amount of days at the bottom in each month. And so don't worry, as I move through, we'll always, over the next few lessons, you're gonna get very used to these charts. This is a very basic one, but I use a lot of charts, and today's a lot of charts just to kind of visualize the calendar. And I'll give some scriptures that will kind of set a standard for us. But otherwise, be prepared to just see a lot of charts. So again, we're talking about Jah's scriptural almanac. And this is a calendar based upon the Holy Scriptures, right? It's honoring Jah's 7 holy appointed scriptural convocations and his Sabbath. That's what the almanac shows us. It also focuses on his clock, Jah's clock. And remember, I might have spoke about that many times, but in particular, maybe last night. And we won't cover the clock today, but we'll get into it another time. And you can notice that the clock 1 is at the bottom, or 12 is at the bottom, and 6 is at the top. We've reoriented our clock to the true understanding. And so with Jah's Almanac, there's 12 months, years. We're going to get the true seasonal beginnings and his sabbatical years. Okay, so when I talk about Jah's scriptural almanac before I go on, I don't think there's any scriptural almanac in the world. And now when I say this, people are going to call, the Bible calendar, or the Creator's calendar, God's calendar, Yah's calendar, Yahuwah's calendar. But when we talk about the scriptural calendar, we're going to be showing days and dates regarding the beginnings of the months and the end of the months from the Bible. We're not going to be looking in the sky at the sun, moon, and stars. We understand what the sun, moon, and stars are when we utilize Jah's Almanac, but we don't base the months, the weeks, or the festivals off of those things. But we can prove each month when it begins, when it ends, with some logical explanations, of course. Let's continue to move on. Shabbat Shalom. Again, family coming in. So again, this is a normal understanding. Pay attention here to this. You're going to see this chart a lot. So it's color coded for like the latter rains, or spring in green, early summer in the red, latter summer or autumn in the kind of the brown, beige, yellow, and then the beginning of winter, or the early rains, is in the blue again. The year always begins on the first day of the week, and the year always ends on the seventh day of the week, the Sabbath, for all years, the common year and the sabbatical years as well. When you do get a chance to have this downloaded, if you haven't already, just be sure that knowing that everything that's highlighted are usually the festivals or any important scriptural dates for the feasts or holy convocations. And of course, one of the main things that we teach is that the years, the seasons, and I guess we can say the year as well, don't begin at the equinoxes and solstices. So for most part, most people begin spring at the spring equinox around March 20th, March 21st. And then those who use a lunar calendar to observe the Most High's scriptural holy convocations, they're going to have the newest, the closest new moon to the spring equinox, and then that will be their first month. So in a sense, they have to wait for the Gregorian calendar to show them the equinox, and then they'll begin their year. But for us, the equinoxes and solstices, as you can see, are the middle of the seasons perfectly. And this is how it works in just scriptural understanding. So this is going to be Jah's official scriptural study almanac. I will be in 2 weeks during Purim giving a link to, you can download the study almanac for yourself. You can print it out in color, put it on your wall if you want, and all of that for free. I'm telling you, for free. I remember somebody said in my comments a couple of times, actually, it's like, wow, the information that you give on your channel is really powerful. And I'm kind of tapping myself, but the thing I want to talk about is that it's free, and freely we've been given and freely we give. And this is what it's about. We're not dealing with, getting money. I can get all the money in the world, and if I lose my own soul, right? So it's not about anything like that. But I do want to give it to people who appreciate things that way. May the Most High strengthen you, and when you get your almanac, he'll help you keep your appointed times and meet with him. So we're going to look at Jah's first 28-year cycle. I'm not going to talk about this 28 cycle at this moment, but, I'm going to get into it. So I'm just going to speak, and I want you to get acquainted with these terms. No problem, sister. All right, so this is what's happening. We're going to get acquainted with understandings. Everything that I'm speaking about now, it'll be clear by the end of this lesson, I hope, as long as time, suffices. And it's going to build the foundation. So when you come back next week or listen to the other lessons, you'll kind of know the lingo, the terms, and it won't sound so weird. And remember, today I'm going to be focusing on just things. I'm not going to be saying all the time, well, I know the lunar calendar does this. I know the Enoch calendar does that. No, but I will be talking again about the Gregorian calendar. This is a 28-year cycle, of which we'll speak about later. Oh, so you notice it says here, year 1 is equal to 41.9 BC. That's the first year of creation. I want to let you know that when we talk about this first day of creation, or even if you just think about it, it was the first day of many cycles of time, and it only makes sense. Day 1 of creation was the first day of the following things: the first day of the true original almanac, the first day of the 24-hour evening and morning cycle, the first day of the weekly cycle. Remember, we're talking about Genesis chapter 1, 1 through 5, just the first day. The first day of the first month, Abib, the first day of the first season, which is spring or the latter rains, the first day of the first yearly cycle, and the first day of the first 7,000-year cycle of time. So, again, when we're talking about things, I like to use the first day of creation as a foundation. And as much as I'm talking about it, I'm not going to review it. You can go to my channel. I have about 3 videos on the first day of creation. And I'm not going to talk about when a 24-hour day begins, and I'm not going to argue about the 12 hours or anything, but I can just say clearly, a 24-hour day begins in the evening. So let's say 6 o'clock in the evening, and it's for 24 hours. And then when right around back to it. So 12 hours of night, 12 hours of light. I know there are many people in the world who keep a different 24-hour period or a different Sabbath, and they'll start in the morning and then they'll go to morning. So they'll go morning to morning rather than evening to evening. and some only just deal with the 12 hours. But 24 hours begin with the darkness, because darkness was there first, and then Jah said, "Let there be light." So I mean, it's a simple pattern. I don't want to break it down too much, but darkness was first, light followed. So what you see in front of you, and these are in also many of the books we have, and I say many because there's 5. Jah's 7,000 year weekly cycle. So we're talking about 7,000 years here. And so I can't show you how this chart goes all the way, but I'm just showing you the beginning of this chart. And I can also, again, remember this book that was from 2000 is revised now. But kind of starts off like this, the 7,000 year cycle calendar book. And then as we turn the pages, you'll see like what you see on your screen beginning up top, right? And then there's all these pages of this chart going through 7,000 year cycles. Let me do it bigger. 7,000 year cycles, right? So I'm just saying all of these numbers start from 1 and then they go right through to 7,000. So you see 1 in the top left corner, and then it goes to 7. So notice again, these are representative of years. So this is 1 year, 2 year, 3, and then 7 years. You'll see here that there's a line underneath this set of 28 numbers. And then there's a line. Every line is a set of 28 years, which are going to be important for you to understand. And I will, again, break it down. So the first year of creation, I'm speaking about when Adam was created, that year, that first time that weekly cycle was the year 4199. And now how long ago was that? Well, remember, right now we're in the year 6222. So that was 6222 years ago. Because from the Messiah to us is 2023 years. And then you go before the Messiah, you'll have 4,199 years, bringing you to year 1 or BC, 4199 BC. Okay. When David wrote this book, he put the amount of days in the 28-year cycle that's counting every single day, and there was 10,227 days. Then he has a 7,000-year cycle, or Jah does. In the 700-year cycle, there's 255,675 days, and in the 7,000-year cycle, that's from year 1 all the way to year 7,000, right? Every single day of the week, of the month, of the years, all the years is 2,556,750 days. So this is how accurate this calendar count is. There is a count in the world that's similar to counting, days. It's like year 1, 2, 3, and it's called the Julian date count. Write that down, check it out. They count days as well. So this is kind of like 1, 2, 3, just like you see on your screen. And David did all of this work. Now, again, I was speaking about the 28-year cycle. You can see I have bracketed 28-year cycle, and this would be the first 28-year cycle. Okay, so when I said, now again, so remember, we're looking at this going 7 across, 4 down, the year 4199 BC. This is Jah's 20-year cycle from the creation year 1, which I just showed you, to year 28. The Gregorian 28-year cycle from the year 4199 BC, counting to 4172 BC. So that same box, remember it had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So again, this is that 28-year cycle for what you just saw, the first 28-year cycle. Because you can see at the left here, it says year 1, 4199 BC. Now, just to give you a heads up, when the calendar gets down to calendar 28, since this is a perpetual cycle, meaning it goes on forever or it repeats, after calendar 28, you just go back to calendar 1 again for the next year. So you see how it says here, major 28 at the bottom right. At the bottom right, so then it has the year 28. Well, for the next 20-year cycle, calendar number 1, it would say year 29, if you understand. Then 30, 31, 32. It just keeps resetting. On this calendar, you'll see L means leap year, right? If it's red, it's a leap year that way. So we have year one, and there's 28 calendars, but we're going to look at year one calendar. And notice it says 364-day common year. But then when it comes over to the end, number 7, we have sabbatical years. And we're going to talk about that. So this is Jah's epoch. And the word epoch means the beginning of something. So for most people, like this might be around the year 6000. And for people who use a creation calendar, 6000, around there, a little bit more, a little bit less, is around how old many people who use scripture chronology know the world is. So people say, well, 6000 doesn't even sound that long. It doesn't sound long. What's longer than that? You see, what's happened is we've been desensitized to think about millions and millions and 10,000 years ago. And then when you think about 6,000 years, you're like, what? That's it? It seems so small. But yes, the creation is, for some people, they call it a young earth, young creation. But again, I don't know why they call it young, because, again, what is older than the earth and the sun, moon, and stars? We're not talking about, the Most High at all. We're talking about this physical creation. But anyways, the equivalency of the first day of creation, you see it says February 12th. But what I have to say here is, because I put February 12th, remember the clock that is used today, they shift time at midnight. And I told you that we begin at 6 o'clock. That's the beginning of the day. But they change the dates at midnight. So if I was to say, to be the most precise I can be, what was the first date or time of creation? It would be creation began in the year 4199 BC, which is 6,220 years ago, in the month Abib, which is equivalent, even though it says 12, it'd be equivalent to February 11th at 6 p.m. So like the beginning of Saturday night, 6 p.m., that's the beginning of creation, right? And then, of course, for 6 hours, as you know, until it gets to midnight, then it becomes February 12th for 18 hours. So I believe that this is a confusing thing. This is why they mix up the dates, but this is the best that we can do. So I equivalent February 12th as, because it's for the 18 hours, for the most time period, right? Because remember, the dates of Jah's things begin the evening before. So that's when the creation began. It could be proven greatly, but I'm just bringing forth something. So this is calendar 1 of 28, the first calendar year. So now you know when creation was. The year 4199 BC, you could call it February 12th, right? Or if you want to say February 11th, 6 p.m. to be exact. That's when the Most High began creating things. And remember, everything that we talk about, I know everybody can say anything and people say other stuff. I say this with great confidence after great studies, great confirmations, learning under David Ray, the Spirit of the Most High helping to guide and correct. And so I don't say anything about these things flippantly and just grabbing numbers and, well, it might be around 41.9. It's precise. And this is how everything that Jah deals with his almanac is very precise. Let's move on. So when we're dealing with this topic here, we're dealing with the foundation of time, the number 7. You understand? Because there's 7 days in the creation week. And if you know how the creation week goes, you can see it before you. In the beginning, on day 1, Jah made heaven, his heaven. He originated time because it says in the beginning, as we know. So that's when time begins. He said, let there be light. But there was darkness and waters before he made light. The earth material was submerged in the waters. It was void and had no shape or form. And that as well is when all the elements, the 4 elements that make up all things began. So on day 1 of creation, Jah just made all the material and everything else to build the, day 2, day 3, day 4, 5, 6, going right through. But a lot of people think that heaven and earth, like however you view the earth, we'll just use the topic of globe for now. I don't believe in a globe earth, but people believe that Jah made that the globe or the flat earth or the plane that people lived on day one. And no, it was just like clay. It was submerged material in waters. That was all that's there. Read it for yourself. But and day four is important to understand because a lot of people, well, most people who believe in calendars from the scriptures, they begin their calendar from day four because it says, let them be for signs, seasons, days, and years. So people say that Jah switched it over to the sun, moon, and stars, and they began time that way. Well, I mean, they began to be the signs, but time was already beginning. And how we could know that is that, think about it, this 7th day Sabbath that you're far right, it's the 7th day from creation. So Jah was counting time, even though there was no sun, moon, and stars on day one, no sun and moon and stars on day two. The earth got formed on day three. Then he made the sun and moon and stars on day four, put them into operation for day 5, 6, and 7. All of these days are all the same 24-hour day periods. So the first holy day of the year from creation was the 7th day Sabbath. We read that. And so when we talk about Jah's Almanack, especially when I get into next week, we're going to use the foundation of the first year of creation to be the foundation of everything else, because that's the best thing that we can see in the scriptures is the first year. All right, so let's move on. So this number 7 is the foundation of Jah's Almanack, time, and many other wonderful things, even prophecy. It reads in Proverbs chapter 9:1, wisdom has builded her house. She has hewn out her 7 pillars. So these 7 pillars are the governors of time. You understand? Everything that deals with time, that's what it's dealing with. Everything. We know that number 12 is there, number 40 is there, but the operation of sevens is what you will see greatly. Shalom to all those who are coming in today on the lesson. So, like I just read, the Most High has 7-year cycles, patterned off of the 7-day weekly cycle. Exodus 20, we know this already, 6 days, and Jah rested the 7th day and blessed the Sabbath day. But what a lot of people don't know is that we have also this weekly cycle up in Exodus 20 also is like a weekly cycle of years. For it says in Leviticus 25, and notice the similar language, 6 years, 6 days, thou shalt sow thy field, and 6 years thou shalt prune thy vineyard and gather in the fruit thereof. But in the 7th year shall be a Sabbath of rest unto the land. A Sabbath, notice what it says for, it's for Jah. Thou shalt neither sow thy field nor prune thy vineyard. Well, one thing I can tell you, family, is in 5 weeks, 5 Sabbaths, that way are 30 sleeps. 60 the year next year, 62, 23, beginning February 5th, is a sabbatical year. Wow. And it's actually the 49th year of the count to Jubilee. So what I'm saying is the year 2024 or 6224 is a Jubilee year. And we only usually get them once in your lifetime. This will probably be my second, or anybody who's over like 50, 51 and over, this would be their second, Jubilee. They probably kept it. Like me, I didn't keep it, but it happened probably when I was 1 year old or something like that. I think it was. But usually it's every 50th year. So I have a lot to talk about when it comes to the year of Jubilee, but I've also got the next sabbatical year to work it out and Jah's spirit to make things, more solid that way. But just so you know. So how does this look? We have our 7-day weekly cycle, 1 to 7, and we have our 7-year sabbatical cycle, 1 to 7, right? It's a pattern. And if there's anything I want you to catch in this lesson, it's the patterns. Now we're going to look at Jah's 7,000-year cycle. You notice on the screen here, you have day 1 being 1,000, day 2, 2,000, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7,000 years. So what we're saying is that Jah has allotted 7,000 years for salvation, the plan of salvation to work, beginning from Adam until the new kingdom. The Messiah is going to come in the 7th day, the Sabbath rest, which is the 7th day. We're in the 7th day, even though we're in the 6,000th year that way. It sounds confusing, but the Messiah is going to come within about 200 years during this time period because we're just getting into the 7th day. So let's talk about this 7,000-year cycle. It's very important. 2 Peter 3, Verse 7 it reads, "But the heavens and the earth, which are now by the same word, are kept in store reserved unto fire against the day of judgment and perdition of unholy men." So you see there's a reservation against the day of judgment here. "But beloved, be not ignorant of this one thing," so don't miss out on it, "that one day is with Jah as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as one day." Now, I know a lot of people, when they see this verse, a lot, they will say this one day to 1,000 years applies to the creation week in Genesis. So people will say that Jah took, 6,000 years or so to make the creation, and they'll use this verse or the one that's in Psalms as well. But as you can see, it's always a flip around. They want to apply this 7,000 year understanding to the first creation week when we can see that it's dealing with the end times. It's for the judgment. So this just saying, just like how a weekly cycle has 7 days, 1,000 years is going to be for each of those days, totaling 7,000 years. So we have our 7-day Sabbath weekly cycle, the 7-day sabbatical year cycle, and now you can see again the 7,000 year weekly cycle, all moving in perfection. Every single cycle here starts on the first day of the week and ends on the seventh day of the week. So you're to say, what was the first day of creation? Was on the first day of the week, and what will be the last day of the 7,000 day weekly year, so to speak? It'll be a Sabbath, because Jah moves in perfection. One of the understandings I've learned about Jah, most of the things that he deals with, things are set. He calls them set feasts or appointed feasts, fixed. Feasts don't move around like how the world's calendars have their festivals move around the weekly cycle. Sometimes it can be everywhere. But Jah's days and dates stick to the day of the week forever. Jah's earth is set. It doesn't rotate. It doesn't revolve around the sun. It doesn't spin. It's not even a globe, but it's set. It's fixed, right? The 7-day Sabbath is set and fixed, right? Jah's law is set and fixed and established. So this is why we have this number 7 here, being prominent. So we looked at the year 1, which was 4199 BC, and we're talking about, again, the 7,000-year cycle. And remember, I introduced it with the 7,000-year week, but I want you to see something here, too. This is the Joshua order of Jah's years and Babylon's crooked way of reckoning years. This is from the revelation of Jah's Almanack in the revised versions that were, been revised a couple of years ago, that are still in PDF form, although we have a few copies of it in like a hard copy. If you look at the top left, you have year 1, Jah's years, of course, and you have Babylon's years in like the gray, dealing with BC. And you have Jah's year 1 is equivalent to 4199 BC. Year 2 is 4198. And as you can see, we keep counting and counting. You can keep going through. And just like I showed you how many years with the book, how many pages it goes through, when we look at the beginning, we could also see here the ending. So this is going near the end, like 6,976, 6,977. You can see it's just counting. And then it gets to year 7,000, which is also equivalent to 2,800 AD. What are we in right now? 2023. So that's like almost 800 years away. But that doesn't mean that's the new creation. That doesn't mean Messiah is coming then. He's coming earlier. But I wanted to show you this is called a chronological chart, because it keeps chronology. So if somebody wanted to say, hey, what year was the year 48 BC? And you look up here and you're like, okay, where's 48? Oh, that was 152 from creation. And so this can go through it's a wonderful tool. We have it. I will be setting things up maybe in a sabbatical year to get these also out. This is not available unless you get the Revelation of Jah's Almanack, which I think is still up. I haven't even brought it down yet, unless I did, but I've seen that not much people grabbed it, you know what I mean? But nonetheless, I'm going to continue moving. This is the 7,000 year we're talking about. So again, remember the 7,000 year weekly cycle? I showed this, and then it goes through, and as you can see on the right, we get to the year 7,000. If you can read it, it's equivalent to 2800 AD. Right? This is the 250th 28-year cycle. So this is a 28-year cycle. So when you count all the 20, like these lines to the 7,000-year cycle, there's 250 of them. So you'll see here at the end of the 7,000-year cycle, it's the end of the 1,007-year cycle, the end of the 250 28-year cycle, the end of the 10th 700-year cycle, the end of the 140th Jubilee, the end of 70 100 years. Whoops. Sorry. And the first 7,000-year cycle ends. So it starts from left, goes all the way through. And everything that's in between, you got to get the books to see those things. So again, I showed this already. The first year of creation. Creation begins here. And we'll move on. So the 7,000-year cycle has 7 different types of cycles that are grouped into years. So of course, we have the 1-year cycle. 1 times 7,000 gives you 7,000 years. We have a 7-year cycle we talked about, the sabbatical cycle. 7 times 1,000, 7,000. We have the 28-year cycle, 28 times 250, the 70 years, 70 times 100, the 100-year cycle or the century cycle, 100 times 70, 700-year cycle, 700 times 10, and then the 1,000-year cycle, 1,000 times 7. All these cycles are cycles within cycles, but they're all within the 7,000-year period. And remember, there's 2,556,750 days in the 700-year cycle. And maybe in a couple of weeks, I'll show you how you can count these things. You don't have to literally go out there and count. You just got to, once you know the cycles and how much numbers are in a cycle, you just got to multiply it. So let's now look a little bit more closely at Jah's 28-year cycle and the 28-year Julian and Gregorian solar cycle. So usually when I talk about calendars, I usually start off like in the beginning. For most of the years, I always started off at what is a day, and I focus on the day, the week, and I built it up that way. But I thought this year, you know what? A lot of that information is already out there. So I wanted to go right at the 28-year cycle, make people aware of a 28-year cycle. If you want to check it on your own, you can type in Julian 28-year cycle, Gregorian 28-year cycle, or solar 28-year cycle. And so these cycles that I talk about, 28 cycles, I mentioned it before, but they're perpetual or they're repeating. And I have to say, you see the Gregorian calendar that's in use today? It's a perfect calendar for the numerics. So what I'm saying is that this calendar they call the Gregorian calendar under the Pope and the Roman thing, the Devil's calendar, it's like you can't make a calendar unless you use Jah's days. Right? It's within Jah's thing. So Jah's calendar is first, and they copied it and made a mimicry of it. And they used a 28-year cycle, but they started in January and they shifted around a few things, added an extra day. But you're going to see, hopefully, if I do get to it, it's a copy, it's a mimicry. But this is something that a lot of people don't talk about. I've seen a few Israelite brothers online, when I looked for a 28-year cycle, they speak about these things. And usually the doctrine that knows about 28-year cycles, outside of just scientific stuff, are those who believe in the Enoch calendar. I find that those who look into the Enoch calendar, although I know many aspects of it are in error and wrong, but I find that those individuals, they tend to appreciate the idea of calendars more, so they'll know more calendar information. It's easier to talk to, and have a dialogue because there's just that knowledge. But I sometimes I find when it comes to the lunar calendar, not all. It's almost like they just know that and they kind of stop there. They don't search any other calendars. And again, this is not a blanket statement, just something that I've come across on my journey. So the perpetual 28-year solar cycle of the Gregorian and Julian calendars is explained this way. The solar cycle is a repeating 28-year cycle of the Julian and Gregorian calendars with respect to the 7-day week, because you cannot change the weekly cycle. This calendar uses leap years occurring every 4 years, and there are 7 possible days to start a leap year, making a 28-year cycle, right? So 4 leap years, 4 years, times 7 days, 4 times 7 will give you a 20-year cycle or sequence. And like I said, it's perfect. It matches up. When I say it's perfect, the Gregorian calendar, I mean to say this, that the numbers are perfect. It keeps the seasons from shifting around any which way, but it's still a pagan calendar. It's still the devil's calendar, but it's way more accurate than the lunar solar calendar. And that's what I mean by that. So, a question was asked by many people searching the internet, why do calendars repeat every 28 years? It says, since the leap years come in a 4 cycle, you need to find a cycle that is a multiple of 4 years that shifts the day by a multiple of 7 days. You can then observe that in 28 years, you'll have 7 leap years. This is all true. And shift the days by 35 days, which is a multiple of 7. 7 times 5 is 35. 7 times 5 is 35. You therefore get a repeat after 28 years. Now, all of this, believe it or not, this, you might say, okay, what's going on here? What is he talking about? Again, you're going to know what it means. But when you do all this calculation, they know that a repeating calendar, perpetual calendar in this creation right now, it's a 28-year cycle, and it's based and ripped off of Jah's 28-year cycle. Now, I don't know if you know about any of these things. I have one of these things. It's a little keychain, and it's a little bit rusty now. I got it at some flea market, but it's a 20-year calendar, and you can just rotate. You can rotate the thing, and you'll be able to know, like, the calendar lasts for 28 years, and then you just go back to calendar 1 again. So this is what I mean by perpetual, always going, always repeating. And a lot of people don't know about calendars. They won't know about this 28-year cycle. So here's the Gregorian 28-year cycle. I have to focus on the Gregorian calendar so that it'll give you an understanding of Jah's Almanack. But remember, the Gregorian calendar copies Jah's Almanack. But because we live in the Gregorian calendar at this time, I want to make sure that your mind is focused on receiving the understanding. So when we talk about Jah's Almanack and his 28-year cycle, you'll be up to par. So looking at this chart, they have a 28-year cycle. It goes from 1 top left to 28. And if you know, every 4th year is what you would call a leap year, right? And they add that extra day for that leap year to February. So February, which normally has 28 days, boy, they always play with February. February is the beginning of Jah's year still, but this is why they play around with February, and why February only has 28 days as opposed to all the other months of the year, and why is it second with 28? It's so weird. February is so odd for them, but it's so perfect for Jah's things. But they put in a 29th day, February, which gives that year 366 days. Regularly, you have to know that there's 365 days in a year. Science will tell you that it's 365 and a quarter. And we know, like, 4 quarters make a dollar, or 4 quarters make a whole. So they'll say it's a quarter day that goes over because it's not perfect. And then they'll add up 4 of those quarters. And then what you will get is a whole day. So they'll say 366. All right. So what I'm showing you here is a 2022 calendar will repeat in 2033, 2039, 2050, and 2061. A 2023 calendar, and we're talking about Babylon's Gregorian calendar, will repeat in 2034, 2045, 2051. You see all of these things. Now, this is what's nice, because this is a 2024 calendar. The Jubilee year won't repeat itself again until 2052, which happens to be 28 years later. And then we have a 2025 calendar when it repeats. So a perpetual calendar, again, is valid for many years. It's designed to look up the day of the week for a given date, whether anytime in the past or anytime in the future. For the Gregorian and Julian calendars, a perpetual calendar typically consists of one of these 3 general variations. I'm only going to give the one. So what they will have 14 one-year calendars plus a table, right? This table is going to help them know where to put those calendars to show which one-year calendar is to be used for any given year. These one-year calendars divide evenly into 2 sets of 7 calendars, right? 7 plus 7 is 14. But you notice again, the Gregorian calendar can't do nothing else but use the 7-day weekly cycle. That's why if anybody tells you, how do we know this is the Sabbath? And, they played with time and they did that and follow a lunar Sabbath and all kind of things. Jah gave you a command, right? He said, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. He ain't going to tell you to remember a command that's going to be lost and out of time. And he kept that first Sabbath holy. So the creation week, 7-day weekly cycle, I'll tell you something. It's one of the biggest witnesses of the Most High. Yeah, your regular week. Because he stamps the 7-day Sabbath. He called all of creation very good. The 7-day Sabbath was stamped as being holy, and then it repeats itself. And then he made that a commandment. And then he made his calendar based off of that 7-day Sabbath. Wow. So let's don't let anybody tell you that the days have been mixed up. Even when they changed calendars, they couldn't even touch the weekly cycle. So let's say they wanted to change a calendar from October 4th to October 15th, but that was October 4th, Monday. Well, then they're going to change it to October 5th the next day. They have to do it the Tuesday. They can't mix up the weekly cycle. It's just Jah's great power. 7 for each common year, with each of the 7 starting on a different day of the week, right? And 7 calendars for each leap year, again, with each one starting on a different day of the week. So they have a common year as well as a leap year. Now, here's a whole bunch of numbers, but this is something that you should know. And if I got this off of the internet, of course, don't have to go through it. But let's say, for example, the top 2013 year calendar. It says, in addition to 2013, this perpetual calendar serves as the calendar year for 1805, 1811, 1974, 1985, 1991, 2002, 2019, 2030, coming up, 2041, 2040. So look at on this screen, you see all of these numbers. All it is giving you witnesses that there is a perpetual, perfect 28-year cycle, and the calendars repeat, family. Okay? Same thing with Jah. So there are 2 types of years in the Gregorian and Julian 28-year cycle calendar systems. They are the common year of 365, or 52 weeks plus 1 day. 52 times 7 is 364. That's the normal amount of days for Jah's common year. So they have plus 1 day. Then their leap year has 366 days, or 52 weeks plus 2 days. Right? So we see it here, growing as it grows. The first 1 to 4, 1 to 8, 12. And again, you saw these things, but I want you to see now just how the numerics work. So we have these common years, as you can see, 1 to 28, but all in the white is the common years of 365. All the leap years, and there's no how many leap years there are. Remember that chart we read? There's 7 leap years. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And each of those leap years will begin on a different day of the week. So let's just say it was in order, if they did it in order, but they don't. The 4th leap year of that calendar would be Sunday. The 8th year would be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, so to speak. That's how they do it. So again, notice the common year is 365, 366. You have to know those numbers. So again, there's 7 leap years within a 28-year cycle. 4 times 7 equals 28. So I'm going 4 across, 7 down, gives you 28. So again, this is the Gregorian cycle as well. Notice it says the Gregorian 28-year cycle has 10,227 days. And how do we get those days? Well, we would count. We'd go 365 plus 365 plus 365 plus 366. And we could do it the long way and add all of these up. But when you add up everything here, it's going to amount to 10,227 days. And I want to kind of show you how we can work that out. So we're looking at the year type. This is the Gregorian calendar still. The amount of days in the year, how many times it occurs within the 28-year cycle, and the total amount of days. So this is what I mean here. So we have the common year, right? And this common year here, as we know, there's 365 days in it. It appears 21 times. Remember what I said? Remember, there's 21 common years, and then there's those 7 leap years. So the 21 plus the 7 is 28. But we're talking about common years. So there's 21 of them. You do the math, 21 times 365, you get 7675. Then when we look at the leap year, which is 366, or 52 weeks plus 2 days, there's 7 of them. 7 times 366 gives you 2,562. And this is the total amount of years and days. So when we add this, 21 plus 7 gives us 28. When we add this together, 7,076.65 plus 25.62, we get 10,227. That's right. 7665. Yes, and rhymes. Bless up, brother. Bless up. All right. So this is important. So this 10,227 days, please remember, write it down now. Don't forget it. Don't ever forget it. It's so important to know this number here. It seems like a very insignificant number, but it's going to help us to understand the perfection of Jah's Almanack. So these are the key points here. All right. So remember we talked about those 35 days? Remember when it said, oh, when we're doing the leap year and it says like these 35 days? And I talked about the 7 times 5 equals 35. Well, this is how this chart here works, okay? So look, this is the Gregorian 28-year cycle, right? 21, all the green is the common years. The leap years are in yellow. Now, when it says 365, and this isn't -1. This means just showing 1. And why am I showing that 1 at the 365 and all the 365s? Because Jah's common year has 364 days. So the 365, when it says 1, that's 1 day extra than the 364. Then when we get to the leap year, where it says 366, that's 2 days extra than the 364. Are you with me? So we know there's 7 columns here, or 7 rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we could easily do the math here, as you can see on your screen. You add up the first column, 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, 7, 7, 7. And then we've got 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 was 14, which gives us that 35 days. And that's what they were talking about, this 35 days. And this 35 days, because it's multiplied by 7 times 5 is 35, it meshes out in here perfectly. So remember, these 35 days are found, 2 of them are found here in this leap year, 2 are found in this leap year. You get what I'm trying to say? So it says 35 days. It's the extra 35 days from 364, but it's not like you're putting this 35 days at the end. It's just found within the 28-year cycle. Get what I'm trying to say? So 365, that's one of those 35 days. You add up all those days, this is what you get. You with me on this? This is, again, all of these days add up to 10,227 days. But I really wanted to break it down so you know fully about this 28-year cycle of Jah and the Gregorian one. Now, calendar expert Jazra points out this. The idea of a 364-day year has been thought by some calendar proponents as ancient and against the natural seasons. Seeing that after 25 years, the seasons would come a month too early and be out of whack with the equinoxes and solstices used by the 365-day Gregorian calendar. Jazra goes on to say, every Sabbath year or 7th year, an extra week, 7 days, is added to the end of the year, the 12th month, Adar, totaling 371, because that's 364 plus 7 equals 371. As Jazra continues, adding an extra 2 weeks or 14 days, 14 plus 364 is 378, to every 4th sabbatical year or every 28th year, 28 years as well, the calendar is even more accurate than the astronomical Gregorian equinox calendar. This man, Jazra, knows what he's talking about. And what he's saying here is that when you look at Jah's 28-year cycle on Jah's chief banner, you're going to see some beautiful things. From red to indigo is 7 colors. Every star in this diagram, of course, has to be 7-pointed. The star in the middle is 7-pointed, but it's also 7 diamonds put together, uneven diamonds, with 4 corners. 7 times 4 is 28. All right. So when we look at this, we will see that all on the outside, there's 28 stars going around the outside family. The beginning of the 20-year cycle starts here because we're starting here and we don't start at the top. And then every 7th year, you see there's a big star. So that's the first sabbatical year. Every big star, 7th year, is a sabbatical year, a 7th Sabbath year. So we have the first sabbatical minor year. Then we have the second sabbatical minor year. We'll have the third sabbatical minor year, and then we'll have the fourth major sabbatical year, giving us 28 years, and then it resets again and goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 20, 28. 1, 2, 3, 4, 28, just like a wheel, always revolving through time. Praise Jah. This banner was created by David Ray, and it's marvelous. On the inside, I could talk a lot about the inside stars, but I'm not going to go there right now. Let's continue. Jazra goes on to say, both the Gregorian and Julian calendars have 10,227 days within a perpetual 28-year cycle that stays in sync with the season's best. Jah's original almanac has established this original 10,227 days within his 28-year cycle of origination, aligning with his true seasons. So they copied him. The deception is a matter of switching numerics. It doesn't matter which way you want to look at it, but there's 7 leap years. So 7 leap years, and then they multiply that by 4, you got 28. Jah has 4 sabbatical years, which is every 7th year. 4 times 7 is 28. It's still the same number, but now it's just broken down. So there's leap years, and then there's sabbatical years, and I'll show you how that works. It's a deception. In other words, Jah has 4 groups of 7, and the Gregorian has 7 groups of 4, all in order to shift the festival days from their fixed positions. And that's why this calendar seems to wander with the Gregorian calendar. So again, we covered this, the 365. Adding all of them up gives you 10,227 days. Now, as we shift Jah's almanac, you're going to see how this works out beautifully too, with Jah's common years and his sabbatical years also totaling 10,227 days. Praise Jah. Let's get into this. There are 3 type of years within Jah's 28-year cycle. They are the common year of 364 days or 52 weeks, the minor sabbatical year of 370 days, or look at that, 53 weeks, 7 days extra or 1 week extra, and the major sabbatical year of 370 days or 54 weeks or 14 days, 2 sevens, 14 days more than the common year. So we have common year, and then we have sabbatical years. And then, of course, in the sabbatical years, we have minor and major. Why is it called minor and major? Well, the major is because there's more days in that year, and minor is because there's less days, simply. But just like the Gregorian calendar, they have their common and leap years. All right. So Jah's Almanac has 364 days in the common year. 52 weeks or 52 Sabbaths in the common year equals 364 days. 7 times 52 equals 364. The last month, Adar, has 30 days in the common year. Because when we're dealing with the sabbatical years, it's the last month that has an effect with that extra week and the extra 14 days, so to speak. But notice that the weekly cycle is not broken. That's why it's an extra 7 days or an extra week, keeping everything in line. The feasts don't wander. Your birthday or dates don't wander around like they do in the Gregorian calendar, right? So let's take a look at this again. 364 days in a common year. You got the equivalencies and also the amount of days on the far right. And this is the full order. And of course, you can see that there's 364 days at the bottom, right? So again, we're looking at the days and months of Jah's common year equals 364 days. You'll see here the latter rains, 89 days, 184 days, and 91 days. You add those up, you get 364. You add up the summer seasons, the summer of 184. You see this right here? So this 184 plus 180 is 184 is the summer, and the 89 plus the 91 is the 180 days of the latter rain season, giving you this total. Now here you see it again, 89 days for the harvest rains or the latter rains, 92 for early summer, 92 for autumn or latter summer, 91 for the early rains. Yes, exactly. Now the amount of days in Jah's months, we can see here again totaling up. We also have the day of the week that each month begins on. So Abib begins on, let me make sure we got it. Yeah, Abib begins on the first day of the week or a Sunday. And you can see the equivalencies. So for example, Judah, the fourth month, begins on the sixth day of the week. And we are now in Adar, and Adar began yesterday, which was the sixth day of the week, right? A Friday. And there's 30 days in Adar. So a lot of these, this chart here is like what I call a perfect perpetual chart of the 364 days. It's full of information. And this is another chart I think you should study because it lets you know how many days are in every month and what month it starts on. And again, for example, I know without me looking at the screen, I'm just letting you know it's 28, 31, 30, 31, 30, 31, 31, 30, 31, 30, 31, 30. I know that that's the amount of days in Jah's months. I don't know it because I'm smart. I had to study and memorize it. I mean, I try to memorize a lot of stuff. Like, do you know the scriptures from Genesis to Revelation? I can say them, but I don't want to say them to try to make it seem like I'm showing off. But I think that those are things that people should learn. So there's certain foundational things I think you should learn and memorize to help further studies. Because if you know the books of the Bible, and especially back in the days when we used actual book, the book of the scripture instead of online, you had to know. If somebody said Ezekiel, you didn't want to be flipping through and trying to figure it out. So I even try to teach my children this, my wife, our family. We learned a lot of these things. You learn the 12 tribes in order. You learn the 12 months. You learn these things. You want to put them in your mind, right? It's a part of Jah's law. And the more sincere you are to doing these things, he will open up your mind to be able to absorb these things. Let's continue. So again, we're just looking at a common year, just looking at the 3 months again. Different way to look at it. As we get to the 12th month that way. And again, here we are at the bottom right on the second. When we talk about fixed, remember again the word fixed and set. These months all will begin on the same days and dates of the year forever. The only exception will be that Adar will end on different dates, let's say, but it will still end on the Sabbath cycle for sabbatical years. So here's Adar, just on a normal Adar, not with no Gregorian on it, and again 30 days in it, right, for a common year. That's what's important. I'm focusing on the common year. Now, Jah's Almanack has 371 days in the minor sabbatical year. 53 weeks or 53 Sabbaths in the minor sabbatical year. 7 times 53 gives you 371. The last month, Adar, has 37 days in the minor Sabbath. So remember, Adar in the common year has 30 days, but because there's an extra week, right? Remember, all this extra week or 7 days keeps everything in line perfectly for the seasons. No festivals wander, always kept at the right time in perfection. Here's the same thing. This is a 371 days. Look up top in the minor sabbatical year. All the month numbers are the same except Adar, which you see now is 37 instead of 30, giving us 371. When we look at Adar, the minor sabbatical Adar, and this is the minor sabbatical year right here, you see Adar at the bottom. I gave it a yellow highlight. Normally there would be 30, but the minor sabbatical year, Sabbath year, is an extra 7. So there's 37 days. And notice again, when the year is over, this 37th day, it still ends on a Sabbath, and the next year will still begin on the first day of the week. And there it is there. 1 second, please. Okay, here we are back again. All right. So yes, this will be 6 weeks. In this month, there'll be 6 Sabbaths. And what's nice is, well, let's get to it. So we have 5 Sabbaths in the common year, Adar, 6 in the sabbatical year. That's right, 6 weeks then. That's right, Mike. Now, Jah's Almanack has 378 days in the major sabbatical year, 54 weeks or 54 Sabbaths. 7 times 54 gives you 378. Oh, notice I put minor sabbatical year. Let me fix that now. I don't want to have nothing wrong. That's supposed to say major. Major. Back here, yes. Major sabbatical year. The last month of Dar has 2 extra weeks, 14 days, which equals 44 days, right? 14 extra days out of the 30, 44 in the major Sabbath year. So again, 2 extra weeks or 14 days. We're looking at the major Sabbath year again, 378. When we get to Adar, you'll see that there's 44 days in Adar now, giving us 378. All right. Looking at it this way, now we have, this is the major Sabbath year. Everything stays the same except Adar. And you will see, again, the 2 weeks added to Adar, 44 days. Again, on that 44th day, the last day of the year of the major sabbatical year, that 28th year, because remember, the major sabbatical year comes once every 28 years, whereas the minor is like every 7 years until you get to the major again. And you can see the 2 extra weeks. Again, the first day of the year, the following year, first day of the following year will be on the first day of the week. Abib always starts on the first day of the week, just like creation. Okay, let's continue. I want to see how we're doing so far. Anything going over people's head? Take a quick break here to take a drink. A type of 7 if you're kind of catching on things. And I guess you don't have to type in anything if you don't really know what's going on. But hopefully I'm going at a pace you can digest that way. Before we go on, not much more left, but to solidify this. Thank you, Mr. Ransfer. Again, if I don't shout out everybody who's on here, shout out to all Zion brethren and sisters and all other people who are in the chat. All right. Bless up, family. So here is Major Adar now. And as Mike was talking about 6, but notice that Major Adar has 7 Sabbaths again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's incredible. That's beautiful. Again, here's our 44 days and all of, it in its formation. Now, when it comes to calendars, anybody can say, oh, where do you see this being added? Where do you see that being added? In any calendar out there in the world, the scriptures don't give you a full understanding of why this and that happens. You have to utilize the principle, the pattern, the standard of just things. You understand? You're not going to go into the scriptures and find 28-year cycle. You're not going to see how many days for the 28-year cycle in the minor Sabbath, but you get the principles of it. And then just spirit and other scriptures will help us put it together. You understand? That's why a lot of people, don't know about this almanac. It was revealed to David that way. He's the only one I've ever seen ever since I search out all calendars that's being published out there. All right, let's continue. So again, this is a chart to show you, this is Adar in the common year, right? Adar is on the far right always. We have 30 days. Adar in the sabbatical year, we have the extra week there, 37 days. And Adar in the, boy, where's that minor again? I gotta stop that. Hold on, I gotta fix that one. Let me just fix that. Minor, major, simple words. Major. There we go. In the major sabbatical year, we have 44 days. So you see how it works, right? Common, minor, major. All right. So let's look at just 20-year cycle, highlighting the 7-year sabbatical cycles. Remember we did this for the Gregorian. So common year, common year, common year, common year, common year, common year, minor, 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 and then you've learned the 20th year is the major. So you see your 371. Everything else is 364. So we have, out of the 20-year cycle, there's 4 sabbatical years, which will leave us with 24. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 times 4 is 24 common years. And remember, when we're talking about these 28-year cycle, just like from the beginning, I want you to see these things. Again, when you get the book or you get the 7,000-year weekly cycle, notice it's 28 years again. Each block is just a repeating of the 28-year cycle. And these are coming near to the end. So again, everything is 28 years. So when you do get the almanac and you do get to kind of sift through it, remember these underlines. It's the perpetual thing. And this is why it keeps going from year 1 right to the end. You can kind of get an idea that it is perfect. And I say you can get an idea is because you never got a chance to go through all the cycles, but time will come. Jah will. So again, we talked about there's 3 types of years in Jah's 28-year cycle: the common, the minor, and the major. Again, 52 weeks, 53 weeks, and 54 weeks. 364, 371, 378. So let me just put them through here. And go to the last one. All right, so here we are. So again, 6 common, minor. Now we're going to do the same thing. We want to be able to add these up. So there's 4 sabbatical years within Jah's 20-year cycle. 7 times 4 is 28. And we're going to look clearly at this 10,227 days of Jah's 28-year cycle, operating by the sevens. So again, these are just reiterations. There's 250 of these in Jah's 7,000-year cycle. Everything resets. Okay, I know I'm making sure you understand it. 6 common years, then you have a sabbatical year. Remember, Leviticus 25. All right. Now, what we're going to do is see how Jah's 20-year cycle also has 10,227 days. I even shouldn't say also. Jah's 20-year cycle has 10,227 days, and the Gregorian calendar also had copied just 10,227 days. So we're doing the same thing like we did with the Gregorian before. You add up all these 364, and then you 371, 371, 373, and when you add up all of these days, you get 10,227 days. So let's take a look at this. The year type, the total days, the occurrences, the amount, same thing as before. The common year, 364 days, 52 weeks. How many common years were there? 24. 24 times 364 gives you this number, 8736. Then we have the minor sabbatical year, 371, 53 weeks. How many sabbatical years are there in a 20-year cycle? 3, because 1 is a major. 3 times 371, 1113. Then we have the major sabbatical year, 378, 54 weeks. 1 times 378, obviously simple. We do our math, and there we have it again, family. Oh, man, beautiful. Perfection. Praise Jah, Jahoshua. Perfection. So you're getting a good idea how this wicked world, basically, in terms of when it comes to the Gregorian calendar, how they copy things. And now you know even clearly who's like the enemy of just things. Remember the scripture says they would think to change times and laws? You get a good idea right now when it comes to Catholicism and all of them stuff there with the dope and everybody, all of them, right? Look at that. That's perfect. Oh, that's why nothing can't be moved. Praise Jah. So again, when we look at the amount of days in Jah's Almanack, amount of days, 10,227, years 27, the astronomical calendar, 28, 1027, all the same. But Jah's has 4 sabbatical years, 24 common years. They have 7 leap years, 21 common years. And again, you see the differences in numbers, right? So you see how they play around with things. Mathematicians is what they call them. So is Jah. Jah's a mathematician, so he deals with numbers big time. So even when it comes to Jah's things, all right. So remember before I showed you when I was talking about, I showed the Gregorian calendar and there was a -1, -1, -1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, and there was a 14, right? So it's the same thing here. So we have 364 days. How many days extra is the 371? It's 7 days extra, right? 7 days, and then we have the 14, and then again we get our, as you know, that 35 again, right? The 35. I'm just comparing both of them. So all these ones, everything that at 35 days. But remember, it's meshed within. The 35 days is within the sabbatical years. A lot of theirs is spread out throughout their common year and then doubled up in the leap year. So let's look at a couple of 28-year cycles right now. This is just 20-year cycle from the creation year 6161 to 6188, or 1961 AD to 1988. Now, for many people who are adults at this time, let's say if you're over 40 or so, 40, maybe it could be 30s or whatever, this is when you would be born in this area here. So look at this again from the top left. It's 1961 AD, equivalent to 6161. So for example, me, I was born in 1971, calendar 11, or the year 6171. Now, for anyone who wants to look on this, for most of us will be, except if you're under 30, I think you may be under 35, 40-ish, you might not be on this calendar, but you'll get on the next one. So I was just born on calendar 11. My wife was born on another calendar, leave her age out. All right, so this is now, so all right, I want to go here, go back. I'm going back. 1988 is calendar 28, right? Year 6188. So what I'm saying is now when we go to the next year, so there's no calendar 29, but calendar 29 is going to be calendar 1. I'm going to give everybody a chance. I know some people who know exactly, but give them a second chance. What calendar year will the next year be? And where would it be positioned? So calendar 28 is 1988, 6188. it's the 28th year. What will the year after that be? We know it's going to be 1989, but which year on the calendar would it be? Which calendar year? Very simple, but it's almost, I just want to make sure we're following along here. Again, well, you can think about it now. I don't want to waste too much time. We're going to go right to it because we're going to start from 1989 or 6189. So it should be, you should have been thinking calendar one is 1989, right? There's probably a delay, but now some other people might have been born in this year. I know most people, all of my children were born in this time. So there's a lot of people born in during these times, 90, 91. You could take a look, right? And this calendar, although it started in 1989, it ended at 2016, which was a leap year. And so the next calendar year is going to be 2017 or 6217. So let's go there. So you notice what's happening here. Everything is staying the same, right? Everything is staying the same. Yeah, we can go to 1085 if we needed to. We could, Mike. Trust me. It goes anywhere you want. 1985. Yeah. So let me go to 1985 again. Let me go back, see where you're at. 1985. Yeah, 1985 is calendar 25. All right. So where are we now? We're in our era. So this is our era right now, so to speak. We're within this 28-year cycle. And in particular, we're still in year 6222, although it's year 2023. But again, there's a difference of a month. So in our new year, next month, 4 or 5 weeks from now, it's going to be the year 6223 and 2023. Remember, even though it says 2022 for calendar 6, and yet right now we're still in calendar 6, it's only for a month because they shift and you can't make it perfect on a chart. So again, looking at this year coming up is going to be the year 2023 now, 6223. It's a minor sabbatical year. And then next year, calendar 8, is year 6224 or 2024. And also a leap year, but wow, it's also a jubilee year. And we'll show you how we can work these out and how to calculate these things as we go through the month of Adar. But I think I'm almost, sorry if I'm almost finished too. Yeah, so this is in our era. And look at it, goes right down to 2044 or 6244. And people talk about, here's the year 2030. I know people talk about a lot of stuff might happen by then. It'll be a sabbatical year in the year 2030, 6230. So what's nice is when you have Jah's Almanack and you have it laid out before you, if you like history or anything, you can go back. We can go back to the year 45. We can go back to the year in the future. We can look into the future and know these dates. And I think I might have done that. I think I take it. So the last year here is 2044. So the next calendar should start at 2045. Did I do it? Oh no, I didn't. Probably just didn't put it up there. I do have them released, but I didn't probably want to bring everything out. So again, oh, actually, this is it. No, this is not it. This is the one we just showed. 1933. Oh, this is even going back further. 1933, starting this one at 1933. I think I'll just show an example of going back. Goes right to 1960. There might be some people who've been born before 1960. That would make, if you were 1960, you'd be about what? No, 2020. Yeah. 60 is 70-ish or so. Oh, here's the one I should have shown in order. So this is for way in the future. No, this is again the same time. I'm always getting mixed up. I think I doubled up from here. There it is. 6245. Wow, that took a while. But this goes up to 2045 AD to 2072. So you see, again, everything is just in normal, perfection that way. Now I know I'm almost finished here. I want to, I think, oh, that's it. We are practically finished, family. On time for once. So what am I saying with all of this? Well, what you see on your screen is half of the 28-year cycle. So what is half of 28? 14, right? And you can see calendar 1, this is for our era, is 6217 to 2017. So where are we right now? Again, we're down into this area here. We're almost at 6223. You can say that we're still in 6222, right? But what is in the last month? So next month, it'll be 6223, 2023 AD. Notice it. This chart here, what this chart helps you to do is you're going to know the beginning of the year for the next 28 years. So you can't get lost. So like the year that we're in now, the year began on February 6th. And that meant every month in this year was March 6th was the beginning of a Jaz Almanack all the way through, just like how January 6th was the beginning of Adar. Next year, it's going to be February 5th, and March 5th will be the beginning of the second month. March 3rd will be the beginning of the third month. April 3rd, so on and so forth. Everything will be on the 5th. Let's say I'm getting mixed up with my numbers. 5th. If you want to know when it's going to start in the year 6230 at the bottom, Abib 1 will be February 3rd, and it'll be a minor sabbatical year. So this is what this chart does. It's letting you know the beginning, the new year for the next 14 years. And of course, we go by 28-year cycles. So here's the rest of it going to 2044 at the bottom, calendar 15, so on. Oh, praise Jah. Yep. So I'll go back a little bit here. So now you can see for the next couple of years, February 5th, next year, this coming year, is February 5th is the new year coming up. And then notice that February 11th, it jumps to February 11th. Why would that be? Well, because remember, the 7 days that are going to be in the sabbatical year, minor sabbatical year, are going to push the new year a week ahead as well. Oh, beautiful. Yeah, and this is this then beside. This is probably too small for anybody to see, but again, going from 1 to 14 on the red side and from 15 to 28 on the right. This is what I just showed you. I showed you them individually, but here's a 28-year cycle. And one thing you could know is that it doesn't matter which year you go into, because remember, it's going to repeat. So if we go back into the 28-year cycle that was maybe started in 1933, remember we showed that? The first year will always still be February 12th. That's not going to move. Understand? The Gregorian calendar moves, but Jah's calendar stays still and firm to the weekly cycle. Whew. Praise Jah, hallelujah, glory to the Father and to the Son. Thank you for, listening in. I hope you got some understanding